that would become emotionally attached to a rodent. I really have never given it much thought. I've looked at guinea pigs and rabbits at the pet store and thought, oh, cute, but I'm not the type of person to have that as a pet. I like my dogs, like my cats, and I like snakes too. You can take them, and if you train them from the time they're younger, they can be affectionate. You can pick them up, and they get used to being handled by humans, and can be quite, affectionate. In some cases, almost similar like a dog or a cat, where you pick them up and they kind of move and nuzzle and stuff like that. They can. Anybody who doubts me needs to go and get themselves a pet snake when it's still a hatchling and raise it and handle it every day and find out. Well, don't handle it when it's getting ready to shed, but at other times, go ahead. And you'll see what I mean. And I doubted it too, folks, so I'm talking from personal experience. My mind was changed by evidence, by real actions. Well, so that day we bought a fancy Syrian teddy bear hamster. And it was the cutest little thing. And at the time, I had started making gluten-free, actually extremely healthy for you, homemade truffles. You know, the candies, chocolate candies. And made with high cacao content and other stuff that's supposed to be really good for you according to recent studies and everything. So I started making those. Well, here we saw this hamster that was the same dark chocolate color, and it was sweet. And when we went to the store, we saw it, and we put our hand in, and this one hamster, she walked right into my wife's hand and then right into my hand, and she was very sweet. So we bought her, and we brought her home, and we reset up cleaned it out and reset up the cage, or the tank, that we had used for the feeder mice that we were trying to make a pet, and we adopted and named Truffle. Now, Truffle Bear became her name, because when she'd be asleep and you go and wake her up, she'd look at you and give you the stink eye. Why are you waking me up? Same stink eye that our hairless monkey, our daughter, makes when you wake her up. And her nickname is Bear. So the Bear was transferred over to, we have our daughter Bear. Not giving her a real first name, folks. Nice try. And then we had our hamster, who is Truffle Bear. And we got very attached. And she got sick last week with conjunctivitis. And she got some shots and some antibiotics I was giving her every day. And she seemed like she was getting better. The disease seemed to be fading, but it was going slower than, we've had other pets that have gotten sick, and we give them antibiotics, and 1 to 2 days later, they're acting like they're not even sick. I mean, we still have to keep them on the antibiotics until they finish the whole thing. But, they're acting normal after a day or two. She wasn't. In fact, she got more and more lethargic. I had to bottle feed her several times a day, like every 2 or 3 hours. I had to go and put food and water down her. But she would still, I'd feed her and everything, and she'd be a little bit active for a short time, and then she'd curl up and go to sleep. And then I'd wake her up a little bit later and feed her again. So she seemed like she was going to make it. It was just going to be a slow recovery. Well, last night, early this morning, I woke up, and I had fed her and given her antibiotics and fed her 2 more times. Well, I woke up, had to go to the bathroom. It happens, folks, sometimes. But I looked at the time and figured, okay, it's been a couple hours since. She's normally nocturnal, and it's been a couple hours since she was fed or watered, so maybe since I'm up, I'll get her some. So I went to go and tap her to make sure she was, and check to see if she's still breathing and stuff. And she was cold and not moving, and she wasn't curled in her normal tight ball. She was kind of elongated a little bit more than normal. So I went to go and tickle her and pick her up to feed her, and she had passed. So she passed sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. This morning. So our family here is a little bit sad. We were a little bit sad over Marshmallow's death. We're a lot sad, folks, because I'll be honest, I was a dog and cat, mostly dog person my whole life. That's what my pets were. You know, dogs have personality, blah, blah, blah. Never thought that a hamster would have personality, but she did. She had a lot of personality, and grew quite attached, and got, of course, even more attached, having to bottle feed her over the past week. That kind of builds even more of that dependency. So our hearts are heavy, but we're hoping she's in a better place. We're hoping that she has her big squeaky wheel in the sky, and she can run and run and run and chew on things without having, and enjoy chewing without it having to be a chore to keep her teeth down, and a water bottle that doesn't lean weird and have to be reaffixed once a day so that she can drink it a little bit easier, and then she's a pet to somebody who will pet her and love her, up over there in the next life. And she was a little warrior. She was a little fighter. I mean, she hung on for a week, and when I first brought her home from the vet said the first 24 hours are going to be the critical ones. If she makes that, she's probably going to recover. If she doesn't, and she won't, well, she made it, and she hung on. So she was a fighter. She just, I guess she wanted that last week to let us know it was okay. Spend that extra little time with us. So I hope she's a little hamster heaven, enjoying the Summerlands, as we call them in my religion. Maybe she's a mascot in Valhalla. Maybe she's playing with Thor. Who knows? Maybe hamster. Maybe Thor needed a pet hamster. So there's for praying, folks. That's what my family's going through from this weekend. But that's not all of it. I mentioned that we have other pets. We also had a baby ball python who needed some emergency surgery on Saturday night. And he appears to be doing well. He's on some medication. Snakes, when they get sick, it takes a long time for the sickness to really get bad. And then it can take a really long time for them to beat it, too, because they have a really slow metabolism. I remember Copper got sick, but Copper had like 2 injections of antibiotics, and he was back to normal. So here's to praying for Bradley, our ball python, our baby ball python. He's a little bigger than a hatchling, but he's still not even a year old, so he's still young, real young. But he seems to be healing well. So we're watching out for him. But that's, we're kind of sad about some family members, folks. I know normally I talk politics, and I really don't want to get you all down for the beginning of this week. But it's an up thing, folks. Let's all pray for everybody's pets. The ones that are doing well, maybe the ones that are a little bit older, that the numbers of days are a lot lower than they used to be, and those that are sick. Let's pray for our non-human family members, folks. Everybody's well, sick, everything, and thank them for bringing the joy and wonder and comfort to our lives that they've brought, as well as making them interesting. So that's where I'm coming from on this Monday morning. Also a relatively sleepless night, as you can tell. So I'd apologize, but I don't apologize for anything. Well, I do, but that's between me and the free-range Texan. So now that I've gone off about all of that, let's take a look at some of the things going on. Some of the things that happened over the weekend, folks, or maybe towards the end of last week that kind of finally hit the national news over the weekend. If you head on over the BuzzFo, there's a story that says, "No patriotism. 11-year-old girl was ordered by school to not wear her 9/11 tribute T-shirt." What? Folks, of course, this was a school in California. One of the least patriotic states in the U.S. It amazes me that we have people based out of California like Bill Whittle and Kurt Schlichter, because they just that state itself just infuriates me. How they can even still, how they haven't just pulled out and formed their own socialist country. Why they haven't done that yet or attempted to do that, I don't know. Maybe they keep hoping the rest of the U.S. will change to their way of doing things, their socialism, their anti-American ways. I mean, come on, folks. Think about California, and then think about Texas. Now, people have known me for years and years, know that I've never been the greatest fan of Texas until I moved here. Since I've moved here, I've found out why Texans think their state is so great. And it really is because of the people here. The mindset here, small government, small businesses king. You can make it here. You just have to roll up your sleeves and work hard. It's just that type of culture in Texas. And they're pro-business government policies, especially since Perry got elected as governor. And they started a little bit under his predecessor, or under Bush. But really, since Perry has been governor, the state has gotten better and better. Even when the country saw that depression, or Great Recession as they call it, that we still haven't recovered from yet, Texas didn't get hit as hard as other states. Got hit like every other state, but not as bad, and bounced back relatively quickly. And then nowadays, you have big businesses leaving California, just popping tent stakes and moving to Texas, because there's a difference in that, just because of tax laws, there's no income tax in Texas. So no state income tax. You have to be very careful with that one. No state income tax. So that means lower payroll taxes. Well, they're a company saving money right there. And then other incentives. And it's not just for the big companies to move. You start your own little small business, and you have a lot of the same benefits here. We won't even call it benefits. Some of the same positive things working for you here in Texas that you may not in other states. So you have Toyota moving some of their operations out of California. You have energy companies moving their headquarters out of California and moving them to here. Tech companies, etc., away from California, because they're increasing their taxes. Their state's dang near bankrupt. They have more people on welfare in California than they do working. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting. So it should come as no surprise that when an 11-year-old girl decides to wear a 9/11 tribute T-shirt on 9/11 to a school in Orangeville, California, that the public school would tell her that's offensive. You can't wear a patriotic T-shirt to commemorate, the tragedy of that day and the togetherness, the patriotism that came afterwards as we, as a nation, rose up against the impending tyranny and terrorism that threatened us. And somehow this school deemed that to be offensive to the school. So they banned her from wearing that shirt. Now, she's a stepdaughter of a U.S. military veteran who served in the global war on terror to top it off. So, they're trying to claim it was a dress code violation. So, all right, there's a little bit on the side of the school there, because I know if my daughter at her school, who has a uniform, were to wear something like this, they'd tell her no. So I'd probably give her a commemorative pin or something instead of a whole T-shirt. She had something, I'm not going to say what, but she had something for that day. But and just like she does for Veterans Day, Memorial Day, because sometimes folks here in Texas, kids are stuck in school on one of those days or the other, if not both. Weird laws down here that, as far as those holidays are concerned. So, I could see the school's point with the school uniform, but when it's a Spirit Day, that they were allowed to wear the school T-shirt instead of the school uniform. Well, if you're going to allow that, then why not allow that 9/11 tribute shirt? It just seems like maybe they should have allowed that. In fact, maybe they should have had a day saying that kids can wear something patriotic on that day because of what had happened back in 2001. And then again in 2012 with the attacks in Benghazi. But, yeah. There's a story write-up by Kevin Fobbs over on BuzzPo to include an embedded video that talks a little bit more about the story. So go ahead and take a look at that interesting story about the 9/11 commemorative shirt that was banned. So, folks, what do you think about that? I'm going to try to open up the phone lines here if you want to call in, and that's at 520-226-8567. So I'm opening on the phone lines if you want to call in. Of course, if you're listening to the podcast, it's going to be kind of difficult. So, and got them open, so anybody wants to call in. In the meantime, what else is going on? Got all kinds of things. One thing of interest. Whoa. Let's, before we get to that, let's get to this. Interesting things as usual going on.
You don't have a right to know everything in a separation of powers government, my friend. That is the difference between a parliamentary government and a separation of powers government.
Well, Miss Eleanor Holmes Norton, guess what? We're watching you. Folks, if you feel so inclined this week, go on C-SPAN and watch the circus. Because this week, the circus is live Monday through Friday. That's right. One of the very few times during the year where you'll actually see Congress, during a session, have floor votes scheduled Monday through Friday. Normally, I think they try to do it like Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They save committee meetings